Okay, this is the homework for lesson 8, and it involves creating a master budget document. In this video, I'm going to go over the directions with you and then get you started on the first tab. So we'll take a look at that. Starting at the top here, make sure for this assignment you're completing these blue tabs. So we'll work on that this week, and that's all that you have due for the assignment. So just these bright blue tabs. And then use the following name structure to save the file. So last name, first name, and lesson 8. And then also don't forget to save on the first bright blue tab. So what I mean by that is before you close the file to upload it to me, click on this and save right here on that tab. So that way when I open the file, it'll be open at that tab and I can begin grading. Okay, so that's what that means, saving on the first bright blue tab. That's this one. And of course, upload and complete it by the due date. All the due dates are posted on the course management system. So again, we're working on this first tab. So I've given you some directions, and I'll just keep building these out in the videos so that you've got directions for each tab. These are the basic assumptions that we're making for building the budget. And then of course, you've got these videos for helping you along in completing the assignment. And also within each tab, you have a set of written instructions for the formulas in case you get a little bit confused while you're going through the video. So hopefully both those things will be enough support to get you through. So we are doing a 2020 sales and cost of goods sold budget. So the whole budget will be for 2020, entire year. We're going to forecast a growth rate of sales of 5% for the year 2020. Remember, they've been experiencing double-digit sales growth, but that sales growth has been coming down. Last year, they had fallen just a tad below that. And then this year, we're forecasting an even slower growth rate because they're really reaching their saturation point in that community. There's also more competition in this market. The weighted average price and the cost, weighted average cost will remain constant, same as 2019. The sales mix will remain the same as 2019. I'm going to try, so let's attempt to reduce the number of days in inventory. So we're going to plan that and try for that. It's part of our continuous improvement process. So we're going to look for 90 days inventory for the raw bean. If you remember, that was 104 days previously. So we're going to try to make some improvement and cut that back a little. And the budget forecast for the roasted bean, we'll try for a 7-day inventory on that. Okay. This light green tab here is a beginning balance sheet. We won't need it for this particular budget, but you will need that tab periodically as you go through these budgets. So we'll deal with this tab later, but it is important to have it at the front because it's really the starting point that we have to build for 2020. So these are the beginning balances for 2020 in each one of the accounts. Okay, so here we go, the sales and cost of goods sold budget. All right, sales and cost of goods sold, cost of sales. That's direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead as well, because that's what's included in the cost of goods sold amount and the cost of goods manufactured. All right, so the first thing we have to do is get the weighted average number of units for 2020. And you have in here the 2019 amounts. That this came from your previous assignment that you just completed a couple weeks ago. So all we need to do here is take and increase that by 5%. And if you type it in this way, 1.05, that will not only capture the previous units, because anything multiplied by 1 is itself, but it also adds in another 5%. So it's kind of a shortcut. Right, so that's the ending amount, number of units. And then if you remember, this was the weighted average price in 2019 that you computed or you had from the assignment I gave you previously, and we're assuming that that has not changed. So you just need to multiply that together. Okay, and then we're going to break it down into the 3 areas for the roasting business. So we're doing the sales for roasting. So you take that grand total times 0.2, and the grand total times 0.42, and the grand total times 0.38. So these were the sales mix percentages that we had determined in 2019 in the last assignment that you did. If you go back, you're going to see those same rates. That's called the sales mix. Okay, so we're assuming a constant sales mix and we're assuming the same price. And we're assuming the same cost that we had previously too. All right, so remember the matching principle, the quantity for the cost of the beans is going to be the same as the quantity of the sales because you're trying to determine what the cost of the sales are. So you got to use the same quantity. So that's that times 0.105 again, right? Same thing. And then this was a calculation we did previously when we found the cost of the beans. So that was on 2 of your previous assignments. You've been working with that figure. So just multiply that across. Okay. So now if the desired ending inventory for raw beans, remember our assumption is 90 days. So based on 90 days of desired ending inventory, right? That's our assumption. Then we can take that cost we have here, divide by 358, remember, because that's what this business is working off of. And then multiply that times 90. Okay, so that should give us our desired ending inventory. Notice that is a little less than what it was last year. And so that's that progress we're talking about making, going from 104 days of inventory on hand to down to 90 days. So when we go to do the ratio on this, we're going to do that next week, you'll notice that it's coming down. All right, this computed automatically, but it's just a sum of those two. So these are costs that you're going to have to commit to. You've got to cover the cost of the items that are sold, and you've got to cover the cost of whatever inventory you want to have on hand. So we add them together. And then you've got some beginning inventory, right, that came from the balance sheet. So that came from right back here, right? You've got this beginning inventory from your balance sheet. But we can reference it right here. So that's where we're going to do it. And we're going to back it out. So it equals minus this. Okay, so at the beginning of 2020, right, we have the inventory that was the ending balance in 2019. So whatever you ended the year with in 2019, you carry forward as the beginning balance for 2020. And we're going to subtract it off because we don't need to create these beans. We don't need to roast these beans. We've already got them. So this is what we need in order to meet our sales goal. This is sales goal, to meet our desired ending inventory. And this is something we already have on hand, so back them out. So therefore, this is the dollar amount of beans that we need to purchase, raw beans, that we need to purchase during the year to make these goals work. And remember, our cost of beans was $4.77, so we just divide to get the number of pounds that we need to purchase, and the number of bags too. You divide that by a 50-pound bag of raw beans. So we need about 778 new bags. Notice that the number of bags we have to buy is coming down. That makes sense because we're now starting to reduce the number of days of inventory that we have on hand. So notice that that allows us to reduce the cash that we have to have tied up in inventory if we can reduce the number of days of inventory. We probably could get even more aggressive with this, but most companies need to make that process gradual over time, make progress, continuous improvement. All right, so that's the beans, right? This is the direct labor component. So again, you've got the prior quantity times the increase. And this came from the assignment you did last week and the one before that. So you just multiply across. And if you remember, the wage rate was $17 an hour. So you just divide 17. And then this number is how many hours one employee would work per year. So it took 8-hour days times 358 days to figure out the number of hours a person works in a year. And if you divide that, you'll get the number of employees you need. So you're still hovering around 2. You should be fine. Shouldn't need to hire anybody else to meet your sales goal increase, which is great. That means you can use your existing capacity to meet this increase in demand. It's not a huge increase. Same thing here. Let's get our manufacturing overhead done. So another 5% increase on the quantity. They're all the same. It's a matching principle. This was the amount you determined on the previous assignment. So it came from a previous sheet. All right, so that is the amount of manufacturing overhead costs we're going to incur this year. All right, so now what you need to do is add all the components together, right? So you've got your cost of the beans right there. Make sure you grab this one. So it's cost of being sold right there. And the cost of the direct labor cost, and the cost of the overhead, manufacturing overhead cost. And all at those quantities. So that's your matching principle at play. And of course, gross profit is equal to sales minus cost of goods sold. And then as a percentage, you take gross profit and divide by sales. Okay, so we've got the roasting part done, right? Now we got to do the cafe sales and cost of sales. So we're still assuming a 5% increase here. These were the numbers from 2019 that you worked with in the last assignment. So just take that and times it by 1.05. Okay, this was from the last assignment. This was your weighted average price. Remember, we're going to stay with the same prices we had before. So we just multiply across units times price to get total sales. And that jives with our 5% increase there. Okay, then same thing here. So you can actually just go up and grab that. So let's do that. And we got to multiply through. Let me show you what I mean. So we got that. Now this is for the baked items, which is 5% of that quantity. So what you got to do with that is times 0.05 to get it for the bakery only. This one is times 0.65. And this one is times 0.30. Okay, so that's the quantities broken down because remember the prices were different and the costs were different. So this is a weighted average price we're going to use to get the sales figure, but these were the individual component costs based on what you did a couple of assignments ago. Okay, so that allows us to roll these out. Okay, so that's your total cost of goods sold for the cafe. To get gross profit equals sales minus cost of sales. And then to get the margin equals gross profit divided by sales. Okay, so roughly the same gross margin percentage, a slight improvement here. And this one ended up being exactly the same. And the reason why the percentages are the same is because our price and our cost amounts haven't changed. Okay, so this might be just a rounding error. Okay. Now this one here is just some extra work for us to focus on that inventory level, that desired ending inventory that we're going to need. And remember, our assumption is we're going to have 7 days of that inventory on hand. Okay, so multiply across. There's our quantity for the coffee, right? So we're just working on a coffee times the cost of the coffee. So this cost, same numbers here. Okay, desired ending inventory is going to be based on 7 days. So you take that cost, divide by 358, because remember that that's their year, times 7 days. So that's the desired ending inventory. Notice it's coming down a little. Okay, this I think was, if I remember right, it was somewhere around 9. So we'll see how that ends up. So we add these two together. And then remember, this is where you subtract off the beginning amount, which would be last year's ending amount. So reference rate over here. And then one more time, bring those two pieces together. Okay, so this is the required roasted bean purchases that the cafe will need to make that. They need to be committed to that. Okay. All right, now if we want to convert that to pounds, this is the price per pound here. So we can take that and divide by the price per pound. And that's the number of pounds that we have to purchase from the roasting business this year. Okay, so out of the total number of pounds that we're going to be roasting, right, most of them go to the cafe. Yep, most of them go to the cafe. Notice this down here broke out for you. I just set this up. It was for the bakery. So I wanted to bust out the direct materials, direct labor, and overhead for just this bakery cost item. So that's why it's 7713, because it's referencing the bakery. And this was the cost of the direct materials when we worked on that. It's a previous assignment. This was the cost of direct labor. This was the cost of overhead. So just multiply through and you add them up. And of course you get the same answer as you got here. So it's just a breakdown of that dollar amount. into the direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead components. All right, that's the end of this first tab. Like I said, this is it's a good one to get us started, but it's one of the more involved ones in terms of the information that's being explained and the tie-ins that it has to your previous work. Okay,